Paul Lebsitnik is the Vice President of Service Provider Marketing at Juniper Networks, and here with us at the TIA 2015 Network of the Future Conference. Good to see you again, Paul.
Thank you very much for having me.
Tell us, Paul, what are the major drivers around NFV?
Well, the big drivers are business fundamentals. When we look at the impact that NFV and virtualization in general has the potential to have on service provider networks, it's pretty phenomenal, but ultimately it comes down to two main areas. One is how can service providers continue to meet the demand of the network that's being placed on it by consumers and enterprise organizations, while also delivering it in a very cost-effective manner. But on top of that, being able to drive additional new service creation or service velocity. So on the cost side, being able to leverage the agility and automation that's inherent in NFV to be able to run the network operationally at a much lower cost basis, but then also giving them that flexibility, that automation, and that business alignment to start to create new applications or take new existing applications and apply them to new markets that might not have been cost effective for them to serve. And a good case in point is the small medium business market, which can be a challenge oftentimes for a company or a service provider to reach. And so being able to match or align your investment with your expected revenue gives you that business match to where I only need to invest a small amount to start to serve that market. And then as the market grows, I can invest more. But if it turns out that the market is not going to take off, I can very easily scope back what I've invested, redeploy the assets, and so really reduce that financial risk for the service provider.
What is the maturity of this NFV marketplace, and where are the opportunities?
Well, the marketplace is maturing. We're still early in the process, so we are still seeing many proof of concepts, if you will, and evaluations in terms of how NFV can fit into their network. And really looking at exploring different aspects of new service creation, how can they leverage service automation framework, as well as enable the underlying or underpinning infrastructure, leveraging virtualization as well as some of the new automation capabilities to support that, but then also looking at, from a cost element, not only how can they create these new services, but how do I build that infrastructure to where I can leverage the DevOps concept, for example, to get that greater integration, leverage the best of breed virtual as well as physical infrastructure to choose the right tool for the right job, and all do that with partners and vendors that have cut their teeth with some of the early pioneers to create this flexible, malleable infrastructure that exists at a very cost-effective basis, but gives them that capability to start to drive some of these new services and new creation. And so I think very early in that process, but we're starting to see some interesting proof of concepts, interesting activity in the market, commercial deployments. And some of the new and existing opportunities that I think are near to the boat are things like virtual CPE, where today you might have had to deploy, or today you have to deploy a physical customer premise equipment that has a technician taking it out to your customer site, installing it. With virtual CPE, you can start to change the economics of that model and deploy a less intelligent device out to the end premises, potentially mailing that out to the end customer, having them do a self-install, and then provide a lot of the functionality from the network, hosted in the network, where it's easier to manage and maintain, and it's easier to provision and deploy. So that's one interesting area. Another interesting area is on the managed services that complements that virtual CPE, where you can start to provision things like managed security services to your end customers once that's hosted back in the network, once you have that infrastructure deployed. And then finally, the other near-term service that we're looking at is something like a cloud brokerage service, where you might take your VPN customers and leverage off of that connectivity, that high quality SLA that you're providing, and start to connect them up to some of the cloud services out there, or start to deliver some hosted services, for example, maybe an Outlook 365, maybe a voice over IP service, to really leverage not only the connectivity, but start to deliver on the SLA and the quality of service and the security that service providers are known for, so that now enterprises don't have to go across the wild and woolly internet where there could be SLA issues, latency issues, security issues, but the service provider can keep all of that enclosed in the VPN and deliver a much better experience to the enterprise end user.
So, Paul, tell us what type of NFV trials or market launches are operators doing and why?
Sure, Deb. I think, so as I mentioned before, we're still in the early phase and there still are many proof of concepts and trials ongoing. But interestingly, we're starting to see that shift, I think, towards some more commercial deployments, targeted commercial deployments. But in a couple of examples I'll throw out there is Orange and their launch of Easy Connect, which is leveraging some of the capabilities around virtualization, around NFV to deliver managed services. And so that's something that has been an interesting evolution from Juniper's perspective, working closely with a pioneer in the area. Also, we just recently had OpenStack Summit up in Vancouver. Great event, a lot of very interesting activity going on. But we had, with Juniper, we had a couple of our individuals doing some joint presentations. One was with NTT, talking about their evolution in terms of creating a managed services framework to be able to deliver some of those managed services such as security to their end customers. And then also an interesting talk with two companies, Symantec and Workday, about how to build a multi-tenant software as a service type of cloud environment to be able to provide those hosted multi-tenant services. And so I think we're seeing some very initial targeted, interesting evolutions. We are at the beginning of the process. I think there's going to be more to come, but it's really refreshing to see the successful outcome of some of all of our hard work.
So, Paul, then what will it take for NFV to just take off?
Well, I think with NFV, we're really talking truly about a transformation of networks. And I've been in the networking industry for a while. And early on, when I started out, it was back in the early 90s with a company called 3Com, where we were starting to build out some of the early corporate or local area networks. Exciting time, it was new, there was a lot of evolution. Things started to get a little more staid, if you will, from a networking perspective. I think we're back to the really exciting, innovative time with NFV and virtualization. It truly is having a transformative impact on networks and on where we're going. But it really is a multi-year evolution. We are at the stage of something that is going to transform networks. It's going to have a tremendous impact, but it's going to be something that's going to play out over many years. And so I think with this early evolution starting out now, we're going to grow as service providers look at trying to understand, how do I evolve and drive my network and learn from this innovation and truly transform my network into a very agile, automated service creation platform. And it will take some time. It's going to be an exciting journey, but I think we've started down those first couple of steps, and it's going to be an exciting next couple of years.
For all of TIA Now's coverage of TIA 2015 Network of the Future, please log on to tianow.org. So long.